doing. He's going to walk through a slideshow. We want to make sure that if you all have questions, please feel free. Do not wait till the end of the slideshow to ask questions. Ask questions as we're going out throughout, because we want to make this as engaging as possible. We know, this information is so broad, and it's as I've always learned, apprenticeship is a mile wide and a mile deep. So please feel free to ask questions as we go out. But without further ado, I'm going to bring Jose and I up.
Thank you. Just a little something about myself. Jose Anaya. I work at El Camino College. I'm the Dean of Community Advancement. It's really economic and workforce development. And I worked in manufacturing for about 17 years, right out of college as a mechanical engineer. And then I really got religion and I went into education. And so since early 2000, I've been working in education and basically developing the talent that manufacturers need. And so I'll talk a little bit about El Camino College. We're located in Torrance, California, which is about 20 minutes west of Cerritos College. Started in 1947, and we've got over 200 certificates and degrees. We also have 36 career technical education programs, and we're a top transfer school. In addition to that, we're a Hispanic serving institution, and that's going to be important later on as I talk about working with industry and really diversifying the apprenticeship and the workforce that manufacturers need. And at El Camino College, we have apprenticeship programs in machining, microelectronics, electromechanical, virtual production, tool and die, app development, IT, and cybersecurity. But let me share with you that not all of them are our programs. We partner with others that have apprenticeship programs, and they recruit from our students. And so in some cases, there are programs, in some cases we partner with them. And so when you look at that, the offerings, it's because we partner a lot with the community. And so now I'm going to talk about how we got started in apprenticeship. So about 10 years ago, manufacturing couldn't find the talent that they needed. If you look at manufacturing today, 80% of those manufacturers can't find workers. They've got open jobs that they can't fill. It's also not a great industry by reputation, because if you think of manufacturing, you probably think of dirty, greasy stuff, although it's not. But that's the perception. And then the other thing is, most people I talk to, they want to work in an office and not necessarily on a factory floor. And lastly, it's male dominated. If you look at the workforce, the majority of them are white and male. And so 10 years ago, Northrop Grumman came to us and they said, we can't find talent. We want to partner with you. And my use case later on in the presentation, I'll talk about what we did with Northrop Grumman, because that became kind of the best practice, our model, and it's been recognized by the Department of Labor. And the other thing we did, and that's just because it's in our nature, we infused DEIA into everything we do. And so we're a Hispanic serving institution. The majority of our 90% of our students are color and socioeconomic need and disabilities and sexual orientation. And so that's what we infused into the apprenticeship program. And I'm talking too much. And so are there any questions? Any questions? Okay. So now I'm going to share what we've learned. And I had a chance to actually get here early and listen to the earlier panel. And I have to tell you, everything they talked about, we learned the hard way. We got a small grant 10 years ago to offer apprenticeships, develop apprenticeships. We walked into a manufacturing. We got money to start an apprenticeship. And their eyes glassed over, and they just showed us the door. They don't want to hear that we have something. What they want to hear is them talking about the problems that they have, and us basically having a solution for them. And so we learned really quickly to basically go in and, okay, what are your pain points? What are you having a problem doing? And basically they talked about, we can't recruit, we can't find everything that basically apprenticeships addresses. So basically, you expand the hiring pool, you hire sooner just because students come in with just a few classes, and then you use the apprenticeship program to upskill them and fill in the gaps of those skills. You focus on skills-based hiring instead of having a degree or a certificate. You basically hire them sooner and develop them the way you want. And then it provides more diversity. And I'll tell you, the eye-opening experience for me is, if you're familiar with the Aerospace Corporation, they're in El Segundo, and they basically came to us and they said, we want to work with you. And I said, well, you've never worked with us before, why? And they said, because if you walk around our facility, all you're going to see is white males. And we want to make sure we diversify the workforce. And that was, oh, okay, great. You're talking to the right people. And that was probably about 6 or 7 years ago. And that was kind of an eye-opening experience for me, because I realized that things are changing. And so we're in a good spot for that change. And then through the Registered Apprenticeship Program, they actually receive either well, in our case, all our apprenticeships are DOL and DAS, Department of Apprenticeship Standards here in California, registered. So all our students basically get those 2 certificates on completion of their apprenticeship program. And then the other thing we did is we offered apprenticeship programs for existing employees. And so companies that want to move their employees that are very loyal, have been working, pressing buttons on a machine on a factory floor, have an opportunity to actually move up. And that's the beauty of it, because they don't have to go back to school and just struggle. We basically do everything at their company site, and we basically develop them with the structure of an apprenticeship.
Jose, can I ask you a quick
Sure,
question?
sure. Thank you for asking.
No, you're good. So, as you think about the previous slide where you talked about DEIA is inherently infused into the Registered Apprenticeship Program by engaging with El Camino College and those employers that are engaging. Did you receive any pushback from the employers, or did you receive any, I won't say praise, but did you receive any positive feedback from them, from that engagement? Did you receive any positive feedback, or did you receive any pushback from the fact that those employers that are now engaging with you are helping to offset the white employees that they've had, where they now have a talent pipeline that is diverse?
Yeah, and so, forgive me, but I'm going to tell you the truth.
That's what we want. Tell us the truth.
So, basically what employers told me is the women and the individuals with disabilities are their hardest working in that environment. And that kind of surprised me. I said, why? And here's where I'm asking for forgiveness, because they said they have to prove themselves. In a male-dominated environment, they have to prove themselves, so they're going to work a lot harder. And that's what came back to us. And so all the women, all the individuals with disabilities basically go in there and work that much harder to prove themselves. Now, let me tell you, it's changing, because we're starting to see that workforce starting to blend, and so they don't have to work as hard. But that was our initial feedback, was they work that much harder to prove themselves in a male-dominated environment.
Oh, please go ahead, please.
Question. Probably should ask the previous slide.
No, that's great.
But yeah, so in your apprenticeship program, can you kind of detail the partners? What their roles are?
I have a slide for that.
Oh, okay, great.
But
oh, I can wait then.
No. But these slides are full of language, and I don't want to go through all the language. So we talked about DEIA and the importance of DEIA, but let me tell you, all the reports I read, these variables go up: profitability, retention. I mean, you can't argue against the data. And so DEIA is starting to be a competitive advantage for companies, and they're recognizing that because they bring different ideas into the mix, and we're starting to see that in our work. We talked about we're a Hispanic serving institution, so we recruit from our population, and we can't help but, our students have that diversity, and that's what our apprenticeship program reflects. Oh, okay, so now I'm going to start answering your question in the next few slides. And so I mentioned that Northrop Grumman came to us, and let me tell you, they were starting to recruit machinists from all over the country. They were offering move packages. That's unheard of for blue collar work, but they couldn't find the talent here. So they basically moved packages, incentives. Those folks would move to Los Angeles. Northrop Grumman is in Redondo Beach at Space Park, about 20, 30 minutes toward the beach. Who doesn't want to move here? Well, they moved here, quickly realized they hate the traffic, they can't afford a house, they wanted to move back. And so that's when Northrop Grumman said, we want to partner with you. So what we did is we sat down with them and said, what is it going to look like? And basically, we brought in partners, and so we brought in the South Bay WIB, we partnered with West LA, and basically went after grants. So Northrop didn't have to burden with all the cost. And so it really took a village to put this together. And I'm going to go into a lot more detail in further slides. And so this really speaks to the fact that even though we had initial success with Northrop Grumman, because they had so much need and they realized recruiting machinists from other parts of the country didn't work, we kind of figured, hey, we're going to go out there and we're going to talk to others. And what we found is no understanding or misconception of apprenticeships. We need to be flexible, and we can't burden them with anything, so we have to take on all the work. So for all our apprenticeships that we own, we do all the work for the employer. And we find that that's more engaging for them because their focus is putting product out the door and not necessarily working with DOL and DAS. We do that for them. It's at a low cost. And the other thing we had to do is address the soft skills. And so what Northrop Grumman taught us is we could send them the best technical technician, but if they can't work in teams, they can't communicate, they can't present, they don't show up on time, they don't want them on their team. And so we had to infuse soft skills. We kind of assumed the parents took care of that, but no. And so that's what we ended up doing. And then we need to work at their speed. Okay, so here's the roles. And let me tell you, Northrop Grumman builds satellites, and so that's the James Webb Telescope. One of our apprentices actually built 2 parts that are in that James Webb Telescope, and it's actually out in space, so we're very proud of that. So here are the roles. So you've got the sponsor, and that's really the individual that registered the apprenticeship program. And many of our apprenticeship, we're the sponsor. We're also the training provider. And then you've got the employer, and then you've got the participant. And then you have intermediaries. And this is the important part. JFF is an intermediary. There's others that can help you do this. You don't have to do it alone. And so what you want to do is, if you've not done this before, reach out to the intermediaries, JFF, others. SCAN is a great, well, Alex is in here, but SCAN, if you're in the Southern California, SCAN's a great way to get connected too. But when we started out, we didn't use an intermediary. We made so many mistakes. We felt like we were flying the plane as we were building it, and it was an awful feeling. I mean, it was just awful. We quickly learned, after a few missteps, to bring in an intermediary, and they actually showed us how to do it right. Any questions here?
Can I hit on this? Actually, this is a very important slide, and I talk about this, especially if you have not engaged in the apprenticeship conversation before. So I'm gonna be very frank and blunt as well, and tell the truth. There's sometimes, and I don't know if our DAS person is gone, from apprenticeship here in California, but sometimes when you approach individuals to have conversations around apprenticeship, many times what I found when I go across the country, or when I was in Wisconsin alone, you're not asking the right question. And that's not your fault. The fault is on the person who hears you, the apprenticeship person that hears you asking the question and doesn't help you ask the right question. So that's why this slide is so important here, because it gives you the overview of what those roles look like and how important those roles are. Now, Jose explained a little bit about the roles, but just seeing this graphic, understanding the different roles, changes the conversation that you have with employers or as an organization when you're having with the individuals you're engaged in. So I've always said that. I've always talked about the apprenticeship system. I have a love for it, but I also recognize there's flaws within the system, and one of those flaws is if you ask certain people, apprenticeship people, they're not going to go the extra mile to give you the answer or to help you understand the question that you should be asking. So definitely understanding this model or understanding these roles can help you start to drive your questions in a different direction. You got a question?
So, okay, so based on this frame, so North Community College is a sponsor, they're also the training provider.
Right.
North Garment is an employer, the work curriculum for support services, placement, all that, wraparound.
Yeah, wraparound services. So let me tell you, they are a great partner because not only do they have wraparound services, they bring on-the-job training dollars. And so for our partnership, they actually help subsidize some of the salaries. So it's a less burden on the employer.
So are there multiple folks within the training for space? Is there space for labor? Is there space for,
Yes.
how to train department?
So we also engage with labor. And so let me share with you that in some cases, some of our partners are both the sponsor and the employer. So they're doing both. In other cases, we're just a training provider. And so when we work with labor, we just become the training provider. We're kind of the pre-apprenticeship, and our construction welders go into a union-based type apprenticeship program. Yeah, so there's different ways of slicing this. We play different roles depending on the partnership.
So did you work with other, in the development of like the curriculum for this, did you work directly with the employer or labor?
Yes. And so, I'm actually gonna get to that.
Sorry.
It's good. It's good.
Somehow he got your PowerPoint
Right.
before this. He's getting us there. He's
That's
like.
me. And here we are. Okay. So.
It's all good. It's all
So,
good.
so let me, I'm gonna work backwards, because your question is step 3. The employer determines the skill standards for the program. So when we engaged Northrop Grumman, or Northrop Grumman engaged us, they basically said, here's what our machinist, and let me tell you, we're doing machining with them, microelectronics, electromechanical, we're starting to do HVAC and a few others, but we really started with machining. And they said, here's what our machinists need to learn at the end of the 4-year apprenticeship program. And basically, those are the skill standards that we registered with the Department of Labor and DAS here in California. And so during the 4-year apprenticeship program, that's what they're learning. And Northrop is basically checking off, our apprenticeship program is competency-based. Even though we say it's 4-year, basically they could finish early depending on when they master the competencies. And so Northrop drove the curriculum that we were gonna train to. And now I'm gonna go back to step 1. And so Northrop, we've developed this pipeline for Northrop. They'll call us up in April and say, we wanna do something in the summer. we want to recruit for machining, electromechanical, whatever. And we will recruit students, collect resumes, and to be considered, you have to take 3 or 4 foundational classes in whatever occupation we're recruiting for. And so these students have only taken a few classes. Then we turn over the resumes over to Northrop Grumman. They basically interview, select from the resumes to interview. Then they go into an 8-week pre-apprenticeship or co-op. They get 2 units toward their education. They get college credit. Typically they don't get paid. It's a non-paid, but the South Bay WID gives them a stipend. So there is some money. We don't pay them. Northrop doesn't. The South Bay WID does. And they work alongside technicians and engineers. And let me tell you, they learn a lot. It's great on their resume. And Northrop calls this an 8-week interview because at the end of 8 weeks, they pick and choose who they want to bring in. And let me tell you, it's typically 92%, 95% get hired. And then they go into the apprenticeship program. And the way we've structured it with Northrop Grumman is they can earn their certificate at El Camino College or their associate's degree, but they're in line if they want to get a bachelor's degree, because at Northrop Grumman, if you're going to go into management, you have to have a bachelor's degree. So we created that alignment. Not all of them choose that path. They just happy to have a job. And when they start as an apprentice, they basically make $27 an hour. And then at the end of the apprenticeship period, they're making about $35 to $38 an hour. And what Northrop tells us is at the end of the 4-year program, they've got the skill set of a 10-year machinist. So once that happened, guess what? Northrop said, we want to do it here, we want to do it here, we want to do it here. And so we've got multiple apprenticeship pathways with Northrop Grumman.
And Northrop pays for the apprenticeship?
Yes, yes, exactly, yes.
You know, that was a part of the question that I had before around when you talk about the incumbent workers. So, any feedback that you received on that? I've seen where employers bring in an apprenticeship program, and the grizzled veteran who's been there for 25 years is like, I didn't get a chance to do that, and now this kid's going to make more than me, and so on and so forth. How did you all navigate that conversation with an employer, or what part of the conversation were you all a part of with that to help them to see, like, to either A, adopt it just for the individuals who are coming in, or B, say, all right, let's build it for those that are coming in, and now let's give the individuals who are incumbent workers the opportunity to get engaged as well?
So we've done it both ways. So we've had some companies come to us and say, we want an apprenticeship internal, and that's a no-brainer. We've had other companies do the new hire, and then some of the veterans are saying, well, what about us? And that's when we have a conversation about basically doing it for the incumbent workforce. But let me tell you, it's a lot harder when you're an incumbent because now you have to be disciplined. And so part of creating the awareness is, okay, yeah, you've been doing a job and you've been doing it for 10, 15 years, but you've been doing it this way. Now you're going to learn how to do it this way.
The right way.
I didn't want to say that. But
That's how it is sometimes.
That's the right way. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I had another question. So when you do have those incumbent programs, is that still considered like a registered apprenticeship?
Yes. They will get everything a new hire apprentice will get. So a certificate from Department of Labor, DAS, and if they want, they can continue to pursue a degree from El Camino. Yeah. And we've had, from Northrop Grumman, we probably have had 60% of the apprentices actually finish their college degree and pursue their associate's degree. And we probably had about 10, maybe 12% go on for a bachelor's degree. But the pathway's there. It's up to them. Once they finish the apprenticeship program, we're done. but they have a pathway to continue their education if they want.
And I think that's an important place to highlight. There's one of the things that I was gonna bring up eventually as we got to it, but I don't wanna forget, because there was something else going in my brain. You know, as we're thinking about building career pathways, that's one of the things that has been non-existent for Black and brown folks, is the actual pathway. I talked about it a little bit earlier during my session, which was, we'll just go to college. If you go to college, you'll be successful. But with apprenticeship, you're actually able to utilize it to create that career pathway. It shows you where you can enter and where you exit, but then also when you exit that apprenticeship, it also has what the other avenues look like as you're going, you know, after you get that, when you're going through college, or if you participate in the apprenticeship program. And I think that's how you grow individuals and you professionally develop individuals to get them engaged and move them forward. The other part of it is, this is the cautionary part that I want to share as we're thinking about this, because it dawned on me earlier and I missed the opportunity. So when he talked about Northrop Grumman was bringing individuals here, they were flying and bringing the moving packages. One of the things that we've seen, and this is something I addressed in ad nauseum with my organizations when I was the state director in Wisconsin, anytime a woman or a person of color came through their door, they automatically pushed them to construction. Oh, you should be a construction worker. Let me tell you, I worked construction for 6 years. I almost got killed 3 times. If somebody would have told me before I went into construction, I almost would have got killed 3 times, Josh Johnson would not have been a construction worker, right? So you're pushing people, and the idea is there's this mentality, and I'm sure many of you have heard this conversation, especially the word apprenticeship. You automatically think construction or manufacturing, that we have to make sure individuals that are Black or brown get into high-paying jobs, right? Okay, that's fantastic, I agree, but there's many more high-paying jobs than just construction or manufacturing. So how do we position individuals to get them engaged in things they want to do and not things that we think they should do because it makes money? Because Northrop Grumman, it sounds like they learned a very hard lesson. I'll be honest, one of my best friends lives in Redondo Beach, and I look at him like, man, what you pay for a condo, I could build a mansion in Wisconsin, right? So I can imagine individuals getting there, and I've seen the Northrop Grumman campus. It's huge, it's beautiful. But I can imagine that was a very hard lesson for them to learn, because the appeal of coming to California is great. I love it. I want to relocate here. But then all those other factors come into play, and now you're left as an organization wondering, or as a company, what's next? Like, what did we really do here? So I use that as a cautionary tale for you, that for those of you who are from community-based organizations and engage with individuals on a daily basis that are helping them to create a career pathway, to get on a career pathway, really find out what it is they want to do and get them engaged with that industry. Not just saying because there's money over here. Money's the least of a lot of people's worries, especially this new generation. I have kids, so I know they could care less about money, right? They want other things from an employer. So just wanted to bring that up.
Oh, that's great.
Another question.
Yeah,
Can you go back to the last slide, please?
sure.
So you mentioned, right, that they have to interview and apply for the apprenticeship?
Correct.
So about how many applicants do you get that actually get to be accepted into it? And do you have like case examples of programs where the employer is involved, where it's saying these are the people that we will allow to do it, versus, you know, a more open apprenticeship where kind of anyone who goes through it is able to continue?
Yes, so we don't necessarily have those open apprenticeships. I think if we did, employers do not, the employers we work with want to have the final say. And so we don't basically guarantee anybody a job or even an entrance into the apprenticeship program. What we do is we let them know that this is a pathway, and we do our best to try to create an opportunity for them. We haven't been very successful at just kind of an open. And so typically we have 90 people that want to get into the program, and about 30 that get accepted on an annual basis. Yeah, are we talking Northrop, or are we talking, yeah?
Yeah.
For Northrop, okay. Yeah. Yes.
For apprenticeship programs, when you're designing them, is there an opportunity to design them where incumbent workers that are taking an apprenticeship program get, credit for prior learning?
Yeah, we
from
do that.
Experience?
Yes, yeah, and we do that. So all our apprenticeships are competency-based. So if you come in with some level of experience, or maybe you've taken a class somewhere, we will give you credit for that.
And I will say that's across the board. That's across the board. Advanced standing credit is across the board in any state you go to. Within most state agencies or the federal agencies for apprenticeship, all have the ability to approve advanced standing. That comes from the employer. The employer dictates that by the employer saying, these are the things that this person's coming in has done. We will grant them this advanced standing credit.
For this program, do the students need to complete their college degree?
No. So let me tell you, we have apprentices that are making more than a lot of the master's degrees. And so we have students that take 3 classes and they're making $55,000 a year.
How does the organization manage that? Because I'm sure you would have frustrated staff, convinced that been there long or that they've been there and they're not even, or they're barely making that.
So
How do you justify?
I'm going to basically make the business case. A lot of the employers that we are working with are suspending their degree requirement and going to competency-based hiring because they're desperate for talent. So if somebody comes in and they don't have a bachelor's degree or certificate, but they can do the work, they will give them the job and pay them at that level. It's just the way we're going right now. If you look at the demographics, our population that we serve, the 18-year-olds, that population is shrinking, and so we're having to look at different populations to actually educate. And what that means is there's fewer and fewer workers, and so companies are trying to suspend certain minimum qualifications because they don't work. It doesn't work for them anymore.
Yeah.
And I was surprised, but I understand why they're doing it. And
There's this afternoon, actually, my colleague Jacob Vigil, who's over there, he's gonna be talking about skills-based hiring, which that is a part of this, right? This is a part of not only apprenticeship push, but just the skills-based hiring in general, which is eliminating this need for a degree, a degree to be a barista, basically. Like at the end of the day, you're getting a degree where it can be something that can be based on the skills that you have. So I would agree, and to your point, employers do get frustrated by that, because that is, especially if there's a union involved. I will tell you, I've had conversations with manufacturers, so I use manufacturer alone, where they brought an apprenticeship program in, and I had the head of the union put me in the corner and was like, hey, we run this, and I'm like, what's up, man? I'm just the state director, man, leave me alone, man. I don't know what y'all got going on with y'all union stuff. But that's the mentality that they have, which is, this opportunity isn't available for everybody here, it's only available for these individuals. So having that conversation and getting them to see the value of upskilling, not only people that are coming in, but then getting to see the value of how to upskill the other individuals as well. But it's a very, very tough conversation to have. And I'll be honest, only the employers who are very progressive in their thinking and understanding that will get it, because others will just push back and say, yeah, this isn't gonna work for us because it's not for everybody. But it's one of those things where laws change. It doesn't affect the people that committed it then, it affects the people who do it now. You have to get an employer to kind of see that and how it will help them grow. You had a question, I'm sorry.
I kind of mentioned, I was gonna say that speaks to the need of, upskilling existing workers and, the need for those programs as well. So is there an apprenticeship model, there's a model for upskilling existing workers. That's where you go back to the union and say, well, that your union person, what upskilling training do you have for, the existing workers? That's the conversation that you start having with those unions, I would think.
Yeah, because you can't forget about the incumbent workers. I'll be honest with you, and I'm sorry, I share a lot of personal anecdotal information that I've had, so I'm sorry to interrupt, Jose, but You know, one of the things we did in an event in Wisconsin, there was in a very large manufacturer, and they put on 6 young white men as mechatronics apprentices. Well, I'm very diabolical in my conversation with employers because I'm like, all right, let me find out what's really going on here. So I say, hey, can I go on a tour of your plant? They're like, sure. You know, they're happy to take me. The state director, like, hey, let's go walk around. As soon as we walked through the door, guess what I saw? Black, brown women. That's it. And I was like, so this apprenticeship program that you're starting, where individuals are starting at like $24 an hour and they're topping out in the 30s in Wisconsin, that's great money. 6 young white men. Are you making this accessible for the individuals who are also on the floor right here? Those entry-level workers? And of course, right, they wanted to try and impress me, but they really couldn't because it took them a second, they paused. And they were like, yeah, we really never even thought about that. And that's the mentality of the incumbent workers. We already have black and brown workers, women who are engaged as incumbent entry-level workers that may be there from temp agencies that may never get exposed to those opportunities. So that's the other side of it, right? That's not the grizzled veteran incumbent worker who's been there for 30 years. That's the black or brown worker who's been there because they got a temp agency job. How are they building programs to also make it accessible for those individuals as well, even though they may be connected to a temporary agency? Sorry, Jose.
No, it's a great conversation. And I just have a few more minutes. So what I'm gonna do is, I think we've kind of talked about the benefits for an employer. And the picture you see over there, that's a dedicated team at Northrop Grumman that basically helps the apprentices. And so Northrop Grumman has about 57 of our apprentices, and these are the folks that kind of mentor those apprentices. And here's our graduating class, basically 6 months ago. And getting a job at Northrop Grumman is like kind of winning the lotto in the workforce, because really good paying jobs, great benefits, and they pay you $10,000 a year to go to college. In other words, tuition reimbursement. And so we'll have students actually come to El Camino and just kind of try to groom themselves into this apprenticeship track, and they will get, they will continue to apply until they get in. And let me tell you, even if you get into the pre-apprenticeship and you don't get a job, you get picked up by somebody else. I mean, we've had other companies pick them up just because they've got that experience. So it's a win-win for everybody around. Well, and I think we covered this, but basically, to engage an employer, you basically have to simplify the language. Don't start talking about apprenticeships. You simplify the language. Also, identify how apprenticeships can wrap around their current training. And so we've engaged a lot of companies that already have internal training, and we just wrap the apprenticeship around that. And encourage them to start with one occupation, because we've had employers come in and say, we want to do 4. No, let's start small. Emphasize that we take care of the paperwork, customize and encourage credit for paralegal. We talked about that. And involve the pre-apprenticeship programs and bring them into the everything. Create a true partnership with them, and that goes a long way. Northrop Grumman donates equipment to serve on our advisory, and they give they give our foundation dollars for scholarships and that kind of stuff. So it's a true partnership. I think I'm done. I don't know if Okay. Any questions?
So from all those, so how many start off on the apprenticeship, and then how many does Northrop actually hire?
So let me tell you, our students don't know that they're on an apprenticeship track until they opt in. And they opt in when we start recruiting for an employer. We say, if you've completed 3 or 4 courses in this occupation, we've got a company that's looking for apprentices. Are you interested? If you are, submit your resume. And so all of a sudden, we get 20, 30, 90, and now they're interested in an apprenticeship. Other than that, they don't know unless they've heard word of mouth, and now they know that in April, Northrop will recruit. They know that other companies recruit at certain times, so they'll come into the counseling and say, when is so-and-so recruiting? Okay, put me on the list. I want to make sure I get an email when they're recruiting. And so nobody's really in an apprenticeship track until we have an employer that's interested. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, so we're kind of backwards that way, just because it really, for us, an apprenticeship only starts when we have an employer.
So once, okay, so.
It's kind of a head fake, I'm sorry. But that's the way we run our apprenticeship programs. If we have an employer, then we'll recruit our existing students into that apprenticeship track. There are students that know about this, and so they're always talking to counseling. Let us know when XYZ companies recruiting.
To follow up, you recruit the number of students that are gonna be hired?
No. We recruit, it's how many want to be considered.
Oh.
And so we might get for, I don't want to throw out names, but Northrop Grumman is our biggest. We get about 90 applications. For the others, we might get 10, 12, 13, but they're only recruiting 2 or 3 individuals for an apprenticeship program. And Northrop is our biggest employer. And so, yeah, we just recruit when there is a need.
So is your program sold as a professional program or certain
Yeah.
program in college?
Yeah, so I should probably tell you that we do have marketing that shows our different apprenticeship programs, and they will tell counseling that they want to be considered. And so they are not, let me be brutally honest, most of our students could get jobs. And they get jobs with just a few classes, because employers are that desperate. But an apprenticeship really grooms, develops, and those students that really want to be developed will go into that. Okay, I gotta go. Okay, thanks everybody.